Welcome to the Josh Bolton Show, where we dive into interesting and inspiring conversations. And now, your host, Josh Bolton.
Welcome, everybody. Today we have Luke Hohmann. We're going to be talking about proprietary budgeting. If I said that wrong, he'll fix it later. We're going to go into his new endeavors. When I booked him a couple months ago, he already has a great event going on, and whatever else comes up. Luke, take it away.
Hi, Josh. Thanks for having me. I'm really happy to be here.
It's an absolute pleasure.
So I think we should start with what the heck is this thing called participatory budgeting? Because it is a new concept, but it's a mouthful, but it's a very important concept. And in reality, it's pretty simple. What we do is we go to a school and we teach the kids how to manage money by giving them money to manage. The source of the funds is usually the principal's discretionary fund or a PTA or, say, a corporate social responsibility partner or some other kind of donor. But let's say that the donor, the principal, the PTA, they go to the school and they allocate, say, $2,000. And we actually see dollar amounts of $2,000 to $10,000 is fairly common. Now, the kids have $2,000. Well, we don't walk up to the kids and say, hey, kids, here's $2,000, good luck. We actually guide them through a structured process. And participatory budgeting, or PB for short, is 5 phases. In phase 1, the kids set a theme. So, for example, it could be sports, or it could be school safety, or it could be educational environment or educational equipment. In phase 2, the kids create ideas or proposals on how to spend the money. Now, those proposals are going to range from completely normal and doable to completely out of budget, et cetera. And that's the goal of phase 3. Phase 3 is a refinement phase. So let's say, Josh, you're in the program and you like to play basketball, and you say, hey, we need new basketball nets for the outside basketball court. Right. Well, that's a great idea, but no one can do anything with it. We don't know how many basketball nets. We don't know how much they cost. We don't know where you're going to get them. We don't know who's going to install them. We don't know if the basketball nets are what's needed, or do you need new rims, or do you need new backboards? Like, what's actually needed to be successful, right? So the kids have to figure that out. And that's one of the cool things about participatory budgeting is the kids are responsible for figuring this stuff out. And when it's all done, you get a proposal that could be implemented. But of course, the kids are creative. They're going to create more than one proposal, so they have to vote. So we put all of the proposals that are deemed viable and acceptable to the school, meaning some proposals are off limits. An example would be if the kids said, we want to change the lunchtime from 12:15 to 12:30. That's typically causing a massive disruption in scheduling. And that's not really an allowed proposal, right? It's a policy, really. So the proposals that are in scope, they go to the voting process. The kids vote. And then when the voting is done, my favorite phase kicks off, which is the implementation. The proposals the kids have chosen are actually implemented in the school, and they see the results of their ideas. And so from an education standpoint, think of all of the wonderful ways that you can teach financial literacy, right? They had to figure out a budget. Then we have budget versus actual, right? Maybe the basketball nets cost a little bit more. Maybe you got them on sale, or you negotiated something at a local merchant. Maybe you you needed additional approvals, or you needed a warranty. And now we can bring that back into training for kids to prepare them for an adult life. Because right now, most of the educational material associated with financial literacy is pretty garbage. It's like games. It's games or simulations. I mean, I had one of my children go through a stock market simulation, And it was just awful. It was, here's $100,000. See how much money you can make in 3 months in a stock market simulation. You got to be kidding me.
Yeah. They just throw it all at Apple and be like, good luck.
Yeah, right. And that's not even so bad. But what if they just decide to throw it all at GameStop? Right. Right. They'll make a ton of money, but they're learning exactly the wrong behavior for their own actual adult life, which is, value-based investing. And so part of the motivation for creating First Root was to create authentic learning experiences. And the way you and I behave with money is really different when it's fake money versus actual real money. Mm-hmm. And we know this. There's a lot of research that shows this.
Because you subconsciously know it's fake. You can consciously tell yourself, oh, it's real money. It's real money. And it's one of those, the moment you train yourself on paper trading and you do it and you're like, I would never actually do that.
Right. I would. And therefore we're losing the actual learning and the actual insights. And our financial literacy curriculum supports a whole range of experiences. For example, in the ideation phase of the participatory budgeting program, we map that into a young adults' ideation phase of what they want to do with their life. Maybe they want to go into the military. Maybe they want to take a trade. Maybe they want to take a gap year. Maybe they want to go to a 2-year or a 4-year college. And so when you have this notion of, oh, we're thinking of ideas, we can map that into their own personal life and say, okay, maybe you're in 10th grade. You don't have to set your whole life in 10th grade. However, you can start thinking about ideas about your interest and, where you're more likely to be heading in your life. And that's exciting.
It really is. That's awesome. Yeah. Like, I remember I was in elementary and we had that stocks market simulator thing. You're like, here's $100,000 to just go. And me being me, because I love tearing apart the game to its core, I found a loophole. So if you bought and immediately sold before it registered, you'd get the credit for whatever the thing is. So my account went suddenly like to $20 million. I just be like, boom, 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 boom.
Yeah. Josh learned, for all the listeners, Josh learned how to be a Wall Street baron. And he's in his home studio, but in reality his home studio is in a high rise in Manhattan, doing high speed training to beat the star. That's hilarious that you found a loophole. What happened? I
actually got in so much trouble. Like the teacher had to sit me down, then the principal had to explain this to me, and then to prove a point, they called the cops, even though I wasn't in trouble. Because they're like, you are literally stealing from people. I'm like, am I? So am I?
Am I really? I'm just playing the game.
I'm just playing the game, man.
By the way, that is the best story I have ever heard on these stock market simulations. It kind of there's another thing that I don't like about simulations is a simulation by definition is not reality. So a simulation by definition doesn't match reality. So imagine all of these simulations right now, and there's a lot of them out there about budgeting and things like that. None of them deal with COVID. None of them deal with the payment protection program. None of them deal with the reality that many Americans and many other people around the world are really dealing with. The inflation rates on these simulations are all wrong. We know that inflation in the US has been relatively low. In historical standards, it's actually low, but it has increased. The last report I saw has inflation at around 5.4%.
Oh, yeah, and easy.
Right. It's somewhere around there, right?
I work at a grocery store at night. We just did price changes. I'm the janitor. I mop up the floors until I can do this full time. And one of the items literally every week we I have a little betting pool. Like we just buy candy, so we're not gambling. But I'm like, I think this is going to jump 20 cents. And they're like, no, it's been 10 cents every week. I'm like, that's the point. They're having labor travel. I think it's going to go up. And then it was actually 30 cents and we were all wrong.
Wow. And so the question then becomes, how does their simulation that leaves kids with no actual experience really prepare them. And I'm not, of course, in our program, the price of the printer or the price of the basketball nets or whatever, it can go up. But the point is that they'll actually have that lived experience of, hey, we budgeted for the basketball nets at $30 a basketball net. We needed 4, so it was 120. But by the time we bought them, Amazon had raised prices and now they were 150. And you can talk about that because every person has had that experience of budgeting X and spending Y. And what's the reason? Sometimes it's, what I hate is people are like, oh, you planned poorly. No, I didn't plan poorly. Things outside of my control changed.
Right. Yeah, that's beyond anyone's control.
Right.
Even Amazon, they're just adjusting accordingly.
That's right.
Yeah, it's really sad. Like a lot of people I know, because I'm the guy they call for money. That's where when I heard you're budgeting, I'm like, hey, that's funny. But they're like, what are we going to do with inflation? I'm like, it's one of those, it's going to really suck. Like our $5 burritos is probably going to go to $8 or $9, and we're still going to have the same minimum wage. Like honestly, unless you have an asset, you're going to get left behind, kind of thing.
Yeah. And that's part of, living within your budget also means periodically adjusting your budget. Mm-hmm. And I know my family spends more on food, although I have I have 6 people in my house. 4 of them are young adults. So, when I think my wife said a couple of weeks ago, she said, we go through 12 gallons of milk a month.
And that's pretty light, actually.
I'm like, wow.
My martial arts instructor has like 5 kids, and he goes, his wife is predominantly vegan, but the kids don't care. And he has 4 or 5 boys, and he's like, it's anywhere from 15 to 17 gallons a month for him.
Yeah, and I don't drink any milk at all, right? And so it's just so. But then you see the price points increase, and so we do need to keep people informed. We need to prepare them. We need to educate them. Only 6 states have financial literacy requirements, even though the national government and different administrations, right? Doesn't matter if it's Democratic or Republican administrations, the administrations have recommended financial literacy education requirements. Some states are moving closer to that. And there's a couple of organizations that have, advocated for this, but we've got a long way to go to prepare people for this really critical life skill that they need to be successful.
Oh yeah. And I got lucky. My mom works for a bank. So she would teach us even at a young age what a budget is, how debt works, if this debt is good because it pays you, kind of thing. And so I just grown up with this knowledge, and I always think it's like, oh, it's common sense. And then as I talk to other people, I'm like, oh, apparently it's not that common, kind of thing.
Well, I have this debate with people too about this notion of like, what is common sense? And I would say that cognitively, right, it is in a sense common sense, but that was common sense in a much simpler environment. So if you roll the clock 100 years ago, which is a long time, right? But 100 years ago, they didn't even have debit or credit cards. Debit and credit cards were invented in the 1950s. And they started with Diners Club, which was actually not a card. It was a membership in a program and the restaurants would just write things down on books. It evolved into this world that we have now. 50 years ago, you had a few kinds of mortgages, right? 15-year fixed, 30-year fixed.
Right.
You had a few kinds of bank accounts. You had your basic banking savings account. You had your basic checking. Now there are dozens of different mortgage offers. Oh, yeah. There are dozens of differences in car loans. There are dozens of student loans and payback options and credit cards. So it's hard to have a common sense point of view in the world when the complexity of the financial landscape has exploded. And I think
really
that's
is
what we have to prepare people for.
Yeah, because for a while, actually, an old coworker at a different job was having trouble. She was using debt and this and that. And she's like, "Well, I can't pay. Like, I don't have money. I'm gonna do this and that." She's like, I'm gonna take a payday loan out." And I immediately just looked at her and I'm like, "Okay, that's a really dumb idea, because that can be anywhere from 30 to 150% of whatever you owe. And especially if it's like a loan shark, he's gonna make it real hard for you. He'll make his money back in 2 months. He guarantees that." And she just looked at me.
Yeah. It's kind of frightening, and not feeling like you have a place to turn. And sometimes I also think that for all of us, habits can creep in. And I have a great story about this. As our kids have aged, of course, when they become 18, legally, as parents, we transfer all of their accounts into their name. Their bank account that they had, it becomes theirs. And I remember my wife was transferring the accounts of one of my children as they became 18, and she said, "Well, let's look at your account one more time." Now, I require all my kids to have summer jobs, right? So they all have their own independent income and their own summer job, et cetera. And she looked at his account and she said, "Whoa, there's a lot of Starbucks transactions here." And she added it up for him and said, "Look, this is what you've spent on Starbucks in the last 2 months." And my son is a rock climber. Mm-hmm. And she said, "Now, what would have given you more pleasure? Taking that same amount of money and spending it in gas and going to the rock climbing place with your friends, or buying Starbucks?" And when he saw it in that presentation, he's like, "Wow, I didn't kind of realize I was spending that much in Starbucks." And then of course you balance it. You're like, "Look, I'm not here to be negative on Starbucks. I consider Starbucks a treat. I know a lot of people go to Starbucks literally every day. That's way too much money for me. But I will go to Starbucks maybe once or twice a month. But to me, it's a treat. It's not a daily habit." And when people get into those daily habits, they feel like they don't have money. And then what you have to do is you have to do the harder part of trying to change, like your friend, like, well, where are you spending your money? Are you going out on fast food? Are you going to Starbucks? Do you have a gym membership that you're not using? Are you paying for some premium, service for entertainment that really you don't need? Right.
And that's one of those, actually, just me being me. It sounds like you too. So one of my coworkers, like 2 years ago, when I first started, they figured out I'm good with numbers, and they joke like, "You're the janitor, but you're good with numbers." And I'm like, yeah, that's usually the situation. I'm like, it's either we're aspiring to be someone great or we just gave up on life. So, but and one of them, he was buying people food every day. And it was just one of those, I told him, like, once a month, if it's like a good event, great. Like, buy 5 pizzas, crazy bread, have fun, get a soda kind of thing. But you're spending $120 every day, and you make $100 every day. Where is you getting this money from? And he just kind of sat and looked at me. I'm like, "You're trying to buy a car, right?" And he's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Literally, stop buying lunches. You will have so much money, you won't know what to do with it in 3 months. And then you can buy your car."
Yeah, well, by the way, you have a sweet spot in my heart, in the sense that when I was in high school, I was a janitor too. I was the janitor. I was the weekend janitor for a very large store that sold fabric.
Nice.
So I had 2 jobs. I was the weekend janitor, and I had to reset the stockroom and the freight so that when the freight shipment came in on Monday, it was ready to go. And so I remember working Saturdays and Sundays.
Nonstop 7 days?
Weekend janitor. Pardon?
As in nonstop 7 days for that session of your life?
No, I was in high school, so
it
was just the weekend. So I worked on Saturdays and Sundays, but it's a tough job.
It really is. And it's a lot of people like, oh, you're supposed to do like X, Y, and Z. I'm like, no. Do you even know what my job is? Oh,
Right.
you just run that machine around. I'm like, I run the machine around and keep track of you. I have to keep track of the restroom, this. And they're like, oh, we just saw you went around with a mop. I'm like, no, there's like a million things going off.
Yeah, there's a whole big checklist, and you got to be on, and because it matters.
It does, especially the smallest details. Like you would think the customer doesn't care about, but oh boy, they do.
They do, and it's appropriate to have them care about it. It's good to keep them. It's nice to create a good environment.
It really is, and it's one of those. I never realized it when I was a customer, not the actual employee, how just a clean floor makes the difference. And now as I'm working and then I go into other places, I look down, I'm like, I don't trust this place anymore. Like
it's funny. I have a term for this. I call it kitchen work. And what I mean by that is when you walk into someone's house or you walk into a friend's apartment, you don't notice a clean apartment, but you notice a dirty apartment. You don't notice a clean kitchen, you notice a dirty one. And that's what you don't want to be noticed for. So if I walked into your store, I would notice a dirty floor. I wouldn't notice a clean floor, but I don't want it. As a store owner, I don't want them to notice a dirty floor.
Right. I'd rather them not even notice it and keep going about their day than be like, something's off.
Yeah. Yeah. Something's off about this store as opposed to, I'm going to come into the store, I'm going to get what I need, and I'm going to feel good about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. That's the biggest trick. I joke with my current boss, ironically, he's named like me. And I said, you've kind of been teaching me stuff I've needed to know, but I've never had someone there to show me. But I'm like, now it's like you're helping me out, so I'm going to help you out. But we're going on this whole janitor tangent.
Yeah, we're going a little bit of a tangent.
So tell me more about the, on top of all that different budgeting and the moving target, do the kids eventually actually get the money and be like, okay, we're going to buy the basketball hoop, like you were saying earlier?
Yeah. So the final stage is implementation. Now, typically the money is actually managed by a teacher because what we'll be doing is we're going to be extending our software so that we're going to be issuing a debit card to the teacher. Oh. So that money is real money,
right?
But it's kind of a hot potato, right? Let's say that the participatory budgeting program has been funded by a couple of $1,000s from the principal's discretionary fund. Every principal in every school has a little bit of money, kind of like cash. They can kind of do what they want to do with it for the school. Mm-hmm. And so usually principals will put some money into the from their discretionary fund into the program. Maybe the PTA adds a few $1,000s, maybe a company. We're doing one project right now in San Mateo, California, where Salesforce made a donation. So the company made a corporate donation.
Oh, wow.
So the question becomes, who manages that money? Well, we're building a relationship with a bank, Central Bank of Kansas City, and the bank will have an actual bank account that will hold that money. We'll give a debit card to the teacher, and then the teacher will use that debit card to acquire the items selected by the kids. What's really important about this is that we know that kids right now, and many adults, are losing trust in our government. We don't think our Congress is working in our favor. And it doesn't really matter if you're Democrat or Republican or Libertarian or Tea Party. Right. We're seeing this lower trust. But people are still more trusting of their local city government and their local school government. So our hope is that when the kids see there's $2,000 in the program, we said to buy the basketball nets for $120. They actually cost $150. We can see the variance. We can see the transaction. All of this will be available to the kids. They'll feel trusted. So every penny will be accounted for. All the teachers, the parents, the principal, the kids, they'll see every dime, every penny. And what that will do is that has been shown to create trust. So when you can see the finances of how public money is being spent, you trust it more. And part of our goal is to create greater trust in these programs and these behaviors. Now, the students won't actually be directly having the debit card because there's laws against giving debit cards to kids and things like that. But they'll see the results of those debit cards, and the teachers like it because it does not require them to create and submit expense reports. It won't commingle their personal funds with the school funds. So it keeps things nice and separate. And that's actually helpful in increasing trust.
It is. Yeah. As I'm just trying to think, I'm like, okay, who's going to the business, like, okay, which kid's going to be in charge of keeping the pennies in check, which is going to be the one organizing everything. And I'm like, I bet you in his program, as that's where I stopped and I just looked forward. I was like, I bet you he has a whole system where they delegate to everyone, but everyone's a team, but they all have their different thing.
Yeah. In our system, it's exactly as you described. Each kid has a role. Now, most of the kids are going to be what we call a participant. They can submit ideas and they can vote. Some kids are student administrators, and they help shape the proposals and they work with the teachers. And then the highest capability, like the most power, if you will, is the teacher administrator. And the teacher administrator would be the individual who's been given the debit card. And now, is it possible that a teacher could go rogue and buy something that's not related to the program? It's possible, but it's unlikely because, again, everything's transparent. Right. So if the teacher does that, everyone's going to know that they did it, and they're going to know exactly who did it, and they're going to exactly know what happened.
Right. And that's what I'm thinking. Most teachers that choose to do what they're doing want to help the kids. So they're not. Yeah, they're not going to go rogue. It's more of a calling to be in that line of work. And it's one of those, just thinking about it, but the way you're structuring it and explaining it, I was like, okay, so the teacher for business structure would be the CEO. Another kid could be like the CFO, or
that's right,
kind of thing. And then it's like the whole business structure down. And it also, at a young age, it teaches them, yes, there is a system, but there is a way to morally work the system, kind of
correct.
Because we don't want to teach them immoral ethics.
Yeah, and we have I was mentioning a financial literacy curriculum that's built in. We're building out a civics curriculum, and we actually talk quite a bit about moral choices that are made. For example, in the voting system, a majority vote could always, if you have a simple majority, the simple majority could always vote for their best interest and in a sense, keep the minority, like they don't get any resources.
Right.
And so when we talk about the voting process, we actually ask the kids to consider maybe this proposal doesn't benefit everyone in the school. For example, one school we worked with, the kids wanted new guitars for their band room. So now, not every kid plays a guitar, not every kid is in band, and yet the kids voted for the new guitars because they realized, that's something that is needed, but not everyone has to benefit. And that's actually part of a civil society. Right. Sometimes we make choices that will benefit a subset of our society, and that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's perfectly fine. As long as it, for the overarching good happens. For the guitar one, maybe the guitars are 20 years old and it doesn't matter how well you tune them, kind of thing. They're just going to always sound off. So in that sense, it's worth it because it's these kids want to be musicians. You got to give them a good working musical instrument. And the benefit is during break and lunch, you get to hear guitars.
That's right. We do get some benefit, right? We can have a band that sounds decent.
Yeah, that's actually interesting. So what is the most, I want to say elaborate, but that might be a too strong of a word, the most unique thing a class has done to purchase for the school?
Well, the one that really hit me hard and really, in a sense, had an emotional reaction for me is we worked with the Academy of American Studies, which is in Queens, New York. And the city of New York and the state of New York are very big into participatory budgeting. In fact, New York City Department of Education has created an entire curriculum around participatory budgeting in schools. So they're very committed to this. And so we were working with the Academy of American Studies in Queens, New York, and they went through the program. And the number one item was more feminine hygiene products for the girls' bathroom. And I was like, wow. And I brought it home to I brought the result home to the home dinner table and we started talking about it. And I remember my wife smiled and she said, honey, you're a man and you're an engineer. So I know you want 3D printers and STEM and things like that. But if you're a young woman and you're menstruating and you don't have the right feminine care products, you're just not going to go to school. Because no woman is going to go out to school that way without the right products.
Right.
And so when you think about this notion of what do our kids really need, no teacher would really know that. And no school administrator would really know that. And I don't mean that in a negative sense, but they go to a different bathroom. They go to a different environment. In one school we work with, Purdue Polytechnic High School in Indianapolis, one of the really big items that the kids wanted was a covered walkway between two of the buildings. Now think about it. Most teachers go from their car into the building, and then they have the same classroom. It's the kids who move, right? Between classrooms. So who would know where you need a covered walkway? The teachers or the students?
The students.
The students. And yet, how often do we ask them? And so one of the real hidden benefits of participatory budgeting that is very obvious once you've gone through it is you see the ideas from the kids themselves. And when you see it from the kids themselves, you learn much more about the environment and what's needed.
Yes. I'm just thinking, I'm like, is it ping pong going in the back and it's getting aggressive?
Oh yeah. Sorry. The team is a little happy today. Good.
No, it's good. It's a good day for you, especially from the events you were telling me beforehand.
Yeah. It's been a good couple of weeks, and of course we're growing. I should let people know that we also have a TikTok contest. So part of our company is we're a benefit corporation, which means we make certain choices to promote social welfare, if you will. And so we have $10,000 in our First Root School Fund, and we have earmarked $7,500 to a contest. And we're going to be distributing that money into Title I schools to help them initiate and seed participatory budgeting. So all we need is a student or a teacher or a parent to do a TikTok video on how they would use participatory budgeting in their school, tag us, and the most likes wins. And so we're starting to see some entries, and it's exciting because we want to give this money away to schools and help them be successful.
That's so cool. I've been trying to figure out a way to like do it, like a contest, like, hey, I want to do this. But that makes sense. Like the most likes and like comments,
just
comments
simple.
or shares.
Most likes.
That's easy.
And away you go. And and we don't want it to be overly complex. But we want to get that money out. And we thought this would be a really fun way where students can get involved because they're making TikToks all the time.
They are. Whether we like it or not, they are.
You bet.
You bet. That's cool. Yeah, because then also, I'm just thinking marketing level now. TikTok finds whoever it believes would be like it or it's relevant to them at that time. So it will actually send out your tentacles far beyond just America.
I hope. And in fact, we've earmarked some money for Europe and some money for Mexico. So our software is designed to be global in nature. We support multiple languages. We support multiple currencies. So our goal is to see participatory budgeting in as many schools around the world as possible.
So I'm curious, for me, this business aspect, how are you making your money? Is it like a SaaS or is it like
Yes,
a
it
lump?
is a SaaS.
Okay.
So at a classroom, we're charging $1 a student for a single classroom.
A month or just
a
one
month
fee?
for one cycle,
Okay.
for one PD cycle. For a school, which requires additional things, like they want the curriculum, they want reports on progress, they want single sign-on and other tech stuff. That pops up to between $5 and $10 per student, depending on what features they are purchasing. But it's a SaaS program. So we host in Amazon secure servers. All the security stuff is built in. It's hosted at Amazon, and then we just charge a fee.
And what's great about their web service is you're only given a fee of whatever you use. So
that's right.
You adjust accordingly. It's like, oh, this is getting a little hard. Okay, next cycle we're going to jump about 50 cents.
Yeah, and our goal, of course, is to keep things as low as possible to promote adoption. Right. But we'll need to make a profit, and we will. I'm not too worried about the size of the market is pretty large, and the opportunity we see participatory budgeting growing. It's endorsed by the United Nations. It's used in New York City. It's used in Chicago. It's used in Phoenix. It's used in a variety of schools in the Bay Area. It's used in smatterings of schools around the U.S. And so we're going to kind of be collecting that up and building it up. So I think that within the next 5 years, you're going to see a form of participatory budgeting pretty much in every high school.
I think so. And that would be great because I'm just looking up your site, your TikTok. I was just one of those, I'm like, I wish I knew how to learn the skill sets to communicate with people. Like money itself, I wasn't too worried about. But it was just until recently, actually, because of the podcast, I was super socially awkward. I was the guy by the tree, with his hood up, we didn't have AirPods, it was headphones, punching my mic for some reason. And I wouldn't talk to people because I didn't know. But if I had an event like that, because it was something familiar to me, I feel like I would actually be more inclined to work with someone and be like, hey, I know you want this, but because of the structure, we should do this.
Yeah. And in fact, I was really excited. We did a program at Hegel Elementary School in Madison, Wisconsin, fifth graders. And one of the fifth graders, after they went through the program, they gave us feedback. The mom gave us feedback. And she said, my son didn't feel really good about creating an idea. He didn't really have any ideas to make the school better. And that's okay. But then when we got to the voting, he saw ideas that he did like, and he knew that there was money. So he voted for his idea. And then his idea that he voted for didn't win. And we talked about it. And he said, Mom, next year, I'm going to be an advocate for my idea because I think it didn't win because no one really spoke up for it. But my friends, after the vote was done, we realized that there were people who liked it and we didn't vote for it because we didn't talk about it. And now I realize that by what I should have done is I should have got involved, and now I want to. And so, and that's okay, right? You don't have to have everything done perfectly. Like people, sometimes you need an experience to prepare you for the next true experience. And in this, young person's life, they got a more powerful insight than had their project won. They got the insight that as a citizen of a democracy, I need to get involved and I need to speak up. That's a life skill that he will carry for the rest of his life.
That's what I was going to say. What I was alluding to with mine is we had something similar, but it was like the teacher bought like a $50 package back in like the early 2000s. And it was just one of those, the school I went to, I was like the only white person on a Hispanic campus. So they didn't take what I said very serious, but it was one of those, we got heated over probably like court nets too. And I remember saying, but we need like toilet paper. I don't know. I don't remember that part. I don't remember, but it's like, we need toilet paper. We actually like need it. The net's nice, but it's not a needed. And everyone just kind of, I remember it. They all turned and just said, whatever Josh says, we're doing the opposite.
Ah,
And
yeah,
that's where I just, as a kid, that made me like, oh, okay. So anything I participate, no one's going to care, kind of thing.
well, and we of course don't want that outcome, but but even that is I'd like to have that experience through a formal program so the teacher could talk about it. We could say, look, the teacher could say, look, why are you rejecting that proposal? Are you rejecting that proposal on its merits or, based on who said it? Well, if you reject a proposal based on who said it, you're going to always reject good ideas.
Right.
You should always be able to separate the person saying the thing versus the thing itself and evaluate as much as possible. What is the thing that's being proposed? What is its merits?
And it did work out in the end, but that's still that one event made me like, oh,
yeah, of course.
Kind of like, oh, I guess my opinion actually doesn't matter, kind of thing. Now I'm like, like I said, after I've been talking to people, I realize, oh, it really does matter. Just there are a lot of jerks in the world.
Yeah. Well, and your podcast is going to help that.
Oh, absolutely. So I'm just curious, how long do I actually have you for?
I think we have another 5 to 7 minutes.
Okay. Then let's talk about how people can get in contact with you.
Sure. We try to make it pretty easy to get in contact with us. So our company is First Root. Our website is www.firstroot.co, not .com. And if you go to our website, you can create an account on our platform for free. So our platform is free for families. And if you go to our website, you can see solutions in families. And so you can learn these techniques and talk about it with your family if you're doing stuff like planning a family vacation or planning a home improvement or something that is involving the family unit. And that allows the family to come together to make decisions. Teachers can start with a classroom. Schools can start right away with a more comprehensive program. Right. So we make it really easy. The software runs on pretty much any device. So Mac, PC, tablets. It's in the iOS or Apple App Store. It's in flight for Android. So soon it'll be in the Android store. So we're just going to make it run on anything. It does support multiple languages. So it supports English and Spanish and other languages. So if kids are using it with their parents and the parents don't, or the kids don't speak English as a primary language, they'll see all the prompts. They'll see the environment in their native language, which really helps to adopt the software and use it.
Yeah, it's very important. If you say it in their language, they're going to be like, this is nice. What is it though?
Right. So yeah, and of course, I'm pretty easy to find on social media. I'm at Luke Hohmann on Twitter. And I'm in LinkedIn. I always encourage people to connect with me on LinkedIn. I tend to use it a little bit more than Facebook. And I post an update on our company every day in LinkedIn. So if people want to see what it's like to watch a Silicon Valley startup grow and become successful, they can see it on LinkedIn. And I'll add one more thing. As part of our corporate position, we want to get people involved. So we've started a equity crowdfunding campaign. And what that means is you can actually buy stock in First Root before we've gone public. And it's a kind of there's a certain trajectory of how a company grows. Right. And eventually professional institutional investors known as venture capitalists get involved. And once they're involved, the normal person in the public can't really get involved in the company until they go public. So this is a special opportunity for now where over until October 20th, people can get involved for just $99. So if people want to get involved, if they want to get stock in a pre-IPO company, this is a way to do it.
So I'm just curious, if let's say I give you $1,000 for stock, am I getting a K1 or is it?
You're getting actual shares in the company.
Okay.
So you would actually own equity in the company.
Okay.
Yeah, you're buying shares of the company. You'd be a part owner.
So it's like you're giving the round of angel investing to the public, like your company wants the public, and then it's like, okay, now we need the big bucks. Once we got
now
that,
we need the big bucks to grow. And this is part of my philosophical choice about making it open and making it engaging to the public.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I want to get as many people involved in as we can.
You're going to definitely change the world with this, because a lot of people need to know just the basic budgeting and just interaction. And and some are not willing to learn after school. So like, if you can get in during the school, you're going to change generations, kind of thing.
That's the goal. The goal is to create generational change.
And it's going to be, I think it's going to be one of those, it's going to be a good change too.
And I hope so.
Luke, it's been an absolute honor and a pleasure. Definitely got to get you on in the future to see where the company's at.
Let's do that. Let's do that like next spring, and we'll have another few months behind it, and it'll be a lot of fun to share the update.
I'm looking forward to it already.
Okay. Thank you, Josh.
Thank you. Have a great day. Well, congratulations. You made it to the end. You're an awesome person. Not many make it here. So, being the awesome person that you are, can you do me one more awesome favor? Can you rate and review this on whatever podcast services you're using? If you do it on Apple and you leave an actual written review, I have a thing on my website. I will take your written review and post it for all to see. Congratulations, you're permanently sealed on my site. Otherwise, I am trying to do YouTube more and live streaming. I will try to put as many of the YouTube links in the description of the show as I can. So give your boy some extra help over on YouTube. Watch my videos. I just mute it and change the channel, change the window or something. But yeah, that's it. Thank you for being awesome, and see you next time.